Hey guys, what's up? Steve here, and tonight we're going to be talking about the film Three Identical Strangers. Three Identical Strangers is a new documentary feature by Tim Wardle that's about three young men who in 1980, through very freakish circumstances, found out that they were actually triplets who had been separated at birth. This understandably startling discovery ended up propelling these young men into unexpected fame, which they welcomed at first. But then the questions came up of, why didn't we even know we were brothers until now? So people started to look into it, and that's one of the things that the film tries to explore. At the very start of the film, one of the brothers says, "If this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe this story, because it sounds totally untrue." And honestly, it is a very unbelievable story. But this actually happened. And everybody knows that the most unbelievable things that actually happen to us are the greatest stories you can tell. And honestly, it makes for great documentary stuff. But you have to do it well. You have to not only depend on the shock of the event happening, you have to depend on a number of other things as well, or else it can break your film. Thankfully, Tim Wardle understands this. He approaches the film in a very good way. One of the things that I really appreciated about Three Identical Strangers is that it's a very layered look into this story. The film starts out really awesome and entertaining in the way that it's telling that these brothers met each other, and it's very fun to watch. And it's fun to see how this sudden fame fell upon them. But then it goes into slightly more disturbing territory and very more serious territory. And for those of you who don't know the story, I don't want to give anything away. And I'm not going to give anything away. But what I will say about it is this. When the things that the brothers end up looking into are looked into in the film takes more of a mystery thriller type of vibe. And the film does reveal some really shady stuff, but you don't really expect it to be asking some of the really profound questions that it actually asks. One of the questions that the film asks, and in some ways tries to answer, is this: how do we become who we really are? Is it in us from the very beginning? Is it nature? Or is it a product of our environment, how we grew up, and our surroundings? Nurture. It brings into the question of nature versus nurture, and whether it is nature or nurture that ends up shaping us more into the people that we become. And another question that the film asks and sheds a light on is this one. Let's say you want to make some earth-shattering discovery. Let's say you want to lay a very long, unanswered question to rest by answering it once and for all. Is it okay to do that by interfering with the lives of others in a way that could potentially damage them for the rest of their lives? I personally think the answer is no, that you should not mess with anybody's life, no matter what the end result may be, because the end does not justify the means. But the film brings to our attention that there are some people who either don't think that way or don't realize what they could potentially be doing. One of the two. And another thing that I will say about the film without giving anything away is that as the film goes on and people start asking more questions, it seems to honestly build up more walls that these people have to overcome in order to find those answers. And it seems almost impossible to find any real answers. And it really well shows how frustrating it can be when you keep going on and on and on, and all of a sudden you slam into a brick wall. And there's one more thing that I want to mention about the film that I really liked about it, which is that Tim Wardle ends up not trying to portray his subjects in a particular light through the entirety of the film. Yes, there are characters that he probably thinks of as not so great people, but for the most part, a lot of the characters end up being shown as pretty complex people, which is a huge benefit because these are real people, and honestly, you shouldn't treat a documentary as if you're making one-dimensional characters, which unfortunately a lot of documentary films seem to do because they're trying to portray their subjects in a particular light. And this film doesn't do that. For example, the brothers. In the beginning, they just seem like a bunch of fun-loving guys who really loved the ride that they were going on. And as things go along, there's some darkness that's revealed about themselves and things that are happening in their lives. And it really brings to light the humanity of the subjects. And almost every single one of them has something that's happened in their lives that they kind of wish they could have done something differently about. But honestly, guys, I really highly recommend that if you get the chance, you check out the film Three Identical Strangers. Not only is it a very entertaining and very unbelievable story that is going to be fun to hear, but it also does a very good job of exploring a bunch of themes along the way. Before we end today's video, I'd like to mention that if you haven't heard it already, I launched a Twitter page recently, and if you'd like to, you can follow me on my Twitter account at FilmFanSteve. And I mentioned not too long ago that I was planning on making a series called Films Unseen, in which I talk about films that I believe are criminally underrated and or unseen, and I recently launched the first 2 episodes. And if you guys want to check those out, feel free. I'd really appreciate it. Alright guys, that's it for my review on 3 Identical Strangers, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.